Welcome to another life lesson from the land. Today we're in Jericho, and particularly at es-Sultan, the site of Old Testament Jericho. Now, the Bible tells us the walls of Jericho fell flat. My interpretation of that, as well as many scholars, is it fell outward, that is, flat outward. And at this site we have evidence of that, as well as evidence of things related to what the biblical account of the conquest was. In other words, it was a short siege because the Israelites were only here 7 days going around the city. And they found huge jars of grain that had not been consumed, which means they didn't need to eat it. There wasn't even a need to because of the short time. We also find that the Bible says that this had happened in the spring of the year at the time of the harvest. And all these store jars were full, which meant they had just had a harvest, and that grain was there. You also find the grain was burnt, which meant we had a destruction here, and that destruction involved a burning with fire. 3 cities were burned by the Israelites. Here is the first of them, then Ai, and then Hatzor. And so we have this biblical data, and we have from the archaeological record the same kind of data. Here's evidence of burning. Okay, this is charcoal that shows a destruction layer at the site. And then we have the mud brick walls that are above us here. Here's some mud bricks that have fallen right at my feet from this wall. And these mud bricks will date, according to the Palestinian Italian excavation that was done here, to the Middle Bronze period. But I see no reason that those walls could not have still been in use during the time of Joshua's invasion. So the walls that fell are probably here. And they fell after being, they were built on top of a stone revetment wall, and they fell outward, and just in a small area so the Israelite army could enter. Remember, Rahab had a house on that wall, and it was left intact. So while there's still a lot of debate about Jericho, I think there's enough evidence, taking the archaeological record and comparing it with the biblical account, to say that we have an historical and historically accurate account. That's the way it is with the Bible. We need to investigate, we need to examine the evidence, but I think when we do, we find that the biblical text stands true.